here at EthCC. Well, thank you. We've got Jesse, the creator of Base, joining us from Coinbase. How are you enjoying the conference?
Having an awesome time. It's summer, it's beautiful. The weather's not too hot, a lot of builder energy. Having a blast.
Apparently last year it was a bit more chaotic and hotter, but you can't really blame the conference organizers for the weather. We were talking before we turned on the mics about how there's just so much actual building going on in the space right now. I think in the past few days we saw a slew of announcements. Mantle, Uniswap X, Lens V2. Obviously you guys have your own initiatives underway. What's the vibe?
I think the vibe is that we were in a crypto winter for a little while, and then we've entered a builder spring. And I think now we're entering maybe on-chain summer, something that's like feeling like it's heating up. Like everything's coming together and starting to work in a really material way. So I'm pretty fired up about that.
Do you think that there's sort of also a concentration around Ethereum? We saw Celo move over, just a bit more focus on Ethereum building relative to other chains.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this has been kind of an ongoing trend over the last couple of years. And at Coinbase, at the beginning of 2022, we basically took a step back and said, we want to move our entire business on chain. Where are we going to do it? And so in the first half of 2022, we did a whole survey of like, what are the options? And after kind of digging into all of the ecosystems, we said, hey, we're going to build it on Ethereum and the EVM and on Ethereum Layer 2. And then, another 6 months of working with Layer 2 teams, getting to know them, understanding the technology stack. And out the other side of that came Base, came our collaboration with Optimism and building on the OP stack. And I think if you look at where we are now, another 6 months later, I think it's clear that Ethereum is leading the way. I think it's also clear that the OP stack is starting to lead the way with Base, and then Zora, and then the Public Goods Network, and now Celo. I know of at least one other L1 that's pivoting from an L1 to be an OP stack powered L2. I know that there's also probably 5 to 10 other just OP stack L2s coming in the next 6 months. So I think that there's kind of been a turn of the tide where we kind of went wide on the L1 and now we've condensed on the L1.
Yeah.
Then we went wide on the L2. I think it's still earlier, but we're definitely seeing a lot of kind of alignment in terms of building on an open source public good in the OP stack.
What do you think was behind, or what impediments were there in some of those other layer ones breaking out?
I think one of the interesting things about being at Coinbase, which is big company, right? It's like 3,000, 4,000 people, and a lot of engineering systems, is it's given me a little bit of a perspective into just the sheer level of investment that has gone into the EVM in that organization, right? And that's not like necessarily something that's like the super strategic, where it was like we're just going to invest in EVM over everything else. It was more just the kind of result of many years of building USDC, which was the ERC20 token, and listing Ethereum as the second asset on our platform, and then ERC20s as the third thing, and building Coinbase Wallet initially as an EVM app. And what all of that has kind of accumulated into is there's probably hundreds, maybe thousands of human years that have gone into building infrastructure specifically for EVM. And so that's not just Coinbase. I think that is kind of a pattern across every single part of the industry, where in every company there have been micro decisions that have accumulated kind of inertia and weight and lock-in to the EVM. And that means that there's now this network effect that's just very strong. And I think that is, it's not unshakable, but when you look at the numbers in terms of developers, activity, total value locked, I think what you see is that it's, order of magnitude bigger on EVM. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg is the human hours, the human years, the human decades that have gone into building all of this infrastructure to support that.
And it far outstrips every other chain.
Anything else. Yeah.
So walk us through what your priorities are for Base over the next 6 months, and what have you been doing here to work towards those?
Yeah, absolutely. So We launched Base Testnet in February. Goal with the testnet was to just kind of meet builders, get them starting to build on Base, make sure that we felt confident from a security, from a safety perspective with the network. That was really successful. You saw thousands and thousands of people come and build on Base. So we just opened up our mainnet for builders last Thursday, really with the goal of giving a dedicated time when we could just focus on developers onboarding their applications to Base. And so that's what we're doing right now. That's why I'm here in Paris. As we look towards the next few weeks, we're going to start opening it up to everyone. And that's going to be really a moment where we start to show, I think, the whole world that there are really fun things to do on chain and useful things to do on chain. And there's obviously the finance stuff, but there's also a lot of other stuff, from games to music to art to food, collecting, media, whatever your thing is. It's starting to happen on chain, and it's starting to happen on Base. And so I really say the next 6 months are about getting that ecosystem kind of going in a minimal form and starting to tell that story in a way that brings in the existing Coinbase audience, but also the next wave of crypto adopters who are starting to be curious about this new platform and starting to lean into something that can make a big positive impact on their lives.
When you think about that application layer of the ecosystem, when do we get to a point at which it's not so tied or tethered to the price of these underlying tokens? And so you think of like the previous bull cycle applications like, Steppen or Axie Infinity, to use like a play to earn, a gaming example, really saw interest decline alongside price. When do we have applications built on top of this technology that have sticking power throughout sort of cycles, right? I still want to use Amazon even if Amazon stock goes to, goes down 90% as an example.
Yeah, and my mental model on this is like, we get to that point when we have products that are built on chain that have real product market fit. They don't have like token price market fit.
Yeah.
They have product market fit. And I think we're starting to get there. And I think we're starting to see like real consumer applications that are getting there. Some ones that come to mind for me are, there's a business called Blackbird that's building a full kind of restaurant loyalty product on chain, building on Base, started by the founder of Eater and Resi, Ben. A really incredible product. You walk in, you tap your phone, you sit at your table, everything's handled for you. You can order bills, it all gets settled in crypto. And then there's a bunch of really cool kind of engagement stuff the restaurant does. That's, I think, up to like 80 restaurants around the country right now. And it works and people love it. You look on Twitter and people are like, that was the best restaurant experience I've had. That, I think, is a product market fit, right? And unsurprising coming from someone who's built, two of the most successful restaurant businesses. But I think what we're going to see is we're going to see more and more of that, where because the infrastructure is finally ready, people are going to take that infrastructure, they're going to take the on-chain platform, and they're going to be able to build applications that people just love because they love them, because it makes their lives funner or better or easier, or helps them make more money in a sustainable way. So I'd say that's an example of like, real world thing coming on chain and leveraging the new platform to do something great. I think we're also starting to see new behaviors emerge on chain. One of the ones that I'm really interested in and personally kind of finding a lot of joy in is this act of collecting like low cost open edition NFTs that are just these moments in time that you can participate in. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's art, sometimes it's just like a milestone or something celebratory, and you're scrolling through your feed and there's just a beautiful thing, and it's no longer those NFTs that are thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. It's $1. It's like, do I want to collect this thing that's $1 that I will have forever, that will connect me to whoever created it, that will make me a part of their story? Like, of course. Like, that's a no-brainer decision for me. And over the last probably 6 months, I've probably minted hundreds of these things. And that was not something I was doing a year ago or 2 years. I don't think anyone was doing that a year or two years ago. But now there's a whole culture, there's a whole kind of part of the world that is seeing these new things being created and wanting to participate with them. And I think both of those kind of examples are not at all connected to token price. They're not at all connected to speculation. They're connected to human behaviors that are reinforced by really, really great products. And those behaviors are a feeling of belonging, a feeling of wanting to be part of something bigger than yourself, and a feeling of just wanting to enjoy an experience, whether it's food or media or a brand or community. I think on-chain is starting to make that better than the traditional experiences.
Enhancing the community.
Yeah.
They enhance the community. We got to do something like that for the Scoop. We got to get them to mint, I don't know, pictures of my face. Who knows?
Yeah.
So what sort of technical challenges are kind of top of mind for you as it pertains to maybe Base specifically, and then maybe Ethereum more broadly?
Yeah. So I'll start with Base. I think the three axes that we are focused on from a technical perspective for Base are decentralization. You hear a lot about this, that basically layer 2s and rollups aren't yet as decentralized as they could be. That's something that we're investing a ton of resources in with OP Labs and other teams in the Optimism Collective, and making really good progress. The second is scalability. I think this is someplace where Coinbase actually kind of has an outsized opportunity to make an impact. We have now a decade of experience scaling all of our systems through crypto bull and bear markets. And we've already started applying that to kind of Base and the underlying technology that powers Base. So we actually just wrote a blog post about this, but thanks to a lot of the kind of activity we saw in testnet, we landed a bunch of changes to the OP stack, which powers Base, that 5x a really critical part of throughput. I think what we'll see over the next few years is we're going to be kind of leading the way on the scalability front, making these kind of application platforms even more scalable. And then I'd say the third one is security. Just kind of how do we build resilient systems that are resilient to a failure in any one client, that kind of manage upgrades in a really safe way. And again, here, this is a place where we're really deeply collaborating with the Optimism Collective, OP Labs, Optimism Foundation, a bunch of other teams to design systems where there's no single point of failure. There's no kind of like one person who could be taken away and cause issues for the overall security of the system. I'm really excited about a bunch of the stuff we'll be rolling out in that over the next couple months. So that's kind of Base. It's all about decentralization, scalability, and security of the underlying technology, which is this OP stack that's fully open source that we're building. And then on the Ethereum side, I think the big thing that I'm most excited about, and this is something that we've been working on for the last year and a half, is something called proto-dank sharding, or EIP 4844, which is the centerpiece of the next major Ethereum hard fork, which is coming later this year, if everything goes according to plan. We started working on it with Optimism and the Ethereum core devs at the beginning of last year, basically saying, hey, Ethereum needs to scale. This is the clearest path to scaling it in a roll-up centric, layer 2 centric world. Let's get our hands in there as quickly as possible, even before Base existed, just because we thought that was the right thing to do. And now we're months away probably from that going live. And what that will do is it's going to lower the costs of layer 2s like Base, but not just Base, any layer 2, like OP Mainnet or Mantle or Arbitrum, somewhere between 5 and 10x. And so today fees are in the 10 to 20 cent range, kind of in a base case, and this will get us down sub 10 cents, potentially approaching sub 1 cent. And then from there, we're going to be able to kind of keep increasing the capacity for this new piece of infrastructure that Ethereum is going to have, and be able to keep driving fees down. And so for us, when we look at what's going to really enable 1 billion people to come on chain, getting all of those fees for things that people are doing sub-cent, while preserving the security of Ethereum, the decentralization of Ethereum, and the incredibly rich application ecosystem that exists in Ethereum, is probably the top priority.
During DeFi summer, I referred to Ethereum as the billionaires chain.
Yeah, right. Impossible, right? It's impossible to use.
So hard.
It's like, you want to do something, here's $50.
Yeah, or sometimes like 150.
Right. It's crazy. And it's a lot better today on L2s, right? Like, you can do basic things for under $1, which is pretty cool. But, that's pretty cool if you're, someone who lives in the United States or wherever, and you get paid a fair amount of money, and then this is just, it is what it is.
I wouldn't know about that.
But if you are, somewhere else where maybe you're making $10 a day.
Yeah, that's still a lot.
That's a lot, right? Like, you're not going to be sending people money if it costs $1 every time. So I think we still have a lot of work to do there, but I think the cool thing is that we have line of sight. Like, these are not unsolved problems or research problems right now. Mm-hmm. It's execution problems, and we have great teams executing on them, and a line of sight to them happening.
What's your thinking around this sort of trade-offs and benefits of the various types of scaling, right? Optimistic versus ZK.
Yeah, and I think this has been kind of the conversation that's been happening over the last year or two. Is you have these kind of two kinds of layer 2s, optimistic layer 2s or ZK layer 2s, and they're competing, and one's going to be better than the other, and the other one's going to die. I think we have a pretty different perspective with Base and with the OP stack that powers Base. We've basically built the OP stack so it's just a layer 2, and you could actually have an optimistic prover for it or a ZK prover for it. And so we've started with the optimistic prover because that's the kind of simpler, more clearly understood one that we feel confident in. But we actually just opened up, the Optimism Foundation led this mission. We just opened up a request for proposals about 6 weeks ago where we said, hey, we have this open source layer 2 that anyone can contribute to. Come build a ZK prover for this, which will let us either run the optimistic prover and ZK prover in parallel or switch over entirely when the technology is ready. And we saw proposals from top tier teams. So Risk Zero, who just announced, I think, a $50 million Series A yesterday or today. O1 Labs, who created the Mina protocol and is kind of a leader in ZK technology. Both of them wrote proposals where it said, hey, here's step-by-step plan for us to build a ZK prover for the OP stack, and there's a line of sight to having that in the middle of next year. And so I think what we are seeing is basically there's an opportunity to turn this conversation on its head entirely and stop bickering about is it ZK or optimistic, instead say, no, let's just build the best tech, the best roll-up tech, and let's explore multiple paths on the ZK side and multiple paths on the optimistic side, and bring all of those together to create the superpowered chain, the superpowered chain stack that will be the OP stack, which is going to power Base, power OP mainnet, power a ton of other chains in the years ahead.
Well said. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
No worries.
Appreciate it, Frank.